I'd like to welcome to the studio Shannon Binns, the founder and executive director of Sustain Charlotte. For those of us in the community who maybe aren't familiar with your organization, walk us through your mission.
Yeah, well, our mission is to inspire choices that lead to a healthy, equitable, and vibrant community for generations to come. So that's a broad mission, but we do a lot of different things. Essentially, we're trying to ensure that as we grow as a city, and of course we're one of the fastest growing in the country, we really grow in a way that's best for everyone, and really thinking about people, our natural environment, and our economy in the long term. So we go about that in lots of different ways, but these days we're really focused on trying to shape how people get around and giving people choices as to how they get around without having to have a car.
Yeah, mobility is a big thing. A lot of people don't want to have to drive everywhere, so they may be using transit like the light rail or bus system, or they may be using bicycles or even getting around on foot. But you think that there needs to be some improvement to make our city more pedestrian and cyclist friendly.
Exactly. Yeah. So, Charlotte, like a lot of cities in the U.S., particularly Sunbelt cities or southern cities that were largely developed after cars were invented, was very much designed with the idea that everyone would get everywhere they needed to go in a car. So we have 60, 70 years of designing our city for the car and not for people who are using their own bodies, which is the way people have gotten around for most of human history. But now we've made it really difficult. And so we've got years and years to sort of work that we need to fix. So we've all sort of inherited a city that wasn't designed, but that doesn't mean there's anything we can do about that. And I think the city is doing a lot right now to try to make it safer for people to walk and bike and access transit. But again, we've got so many years where we didn't design our streets with those users in mind. We have a lot to do.
You recently sent a letter to Charlotte City Council and the city manager asking them to budget $50 million to some specific ways to improve our city for pedestrians and cyclists. How exactly do you want them to do that?
Yeah, so we asked that $50 million be spread across 5 different existing city programs. One thing to explain is that every 2 years the city puts together a new infrastructure budget, essentially. So we're asking them to take some of the money they already have that was approved by voters in 2012 to put towards specific projects and programs. So again, the money was meant for transportation and other community improvements, and we're just asking them to allocate it in a certain way as a bit of background there. But so there's always investments made during these cycles in pedestrian infrastructure and more recently bicycle infrastructure. So we're asking them to devote 20 million of that 50 million to the city's pedestrian program, which is essentially the bucket of money that they have available to spend on making the city safer for walking. So that can be crosswalks, that can be sidewalks where sidewalks don't exist, it can be mid-block crosswalks, a whole range of things that improve the environment for pedestrians. We also asked for 10 million for the bicycle program. So city does have a bicycle program, but there isn't a lot of money budgeted historically for infrastructure improvements, but those are desperately needed as well. So that's going to include, obviously, bike lanes and other facilities for cyclists to get around. I believe we asked for 5 million for the city to invest in the Uptown Connects network. So the city of Charlotte actually hired a consultant and did a study a few years ago looking at what could we do, what would be needed to make it safe and have a network of safe bike facilities in Uptown Charlotte. So that study was completed in 2018 with a number of recommendations, but the investment hasn't been made yet to really start building that network. So we're asking for 5 million to begin to implement that Uptown bicycle network.
Well, we will wait to see what the city does as far as their planning goes, but we know here at Channel 9 that there have been, sadly, some tragic outcomes involving cyclists and pedestrians in our area. And we thank you for sharing your mission and your efforts to see improvements in our city. Thank you, Shannon Binns.
Thanks for having me.